Well, hello YouTube. Here we are. The time has come for the supercycle Phantom 29 to be stripped on down. You remember the video I did a little while ago on her? Well, left her a little bit longer, hoping to find a parts bike somewhere. And I did come across a couple that were in fixable condition that could have been fixed and resold. I didn't find any that were in my price range. A lot of the people that were selling these used bicycles still, wanted $50–$60 for them in non-riding or non-rideable condition. And the ones that were in pristine condition, well, they're upwards of $150, which almost makes a guy want to take the chance of putting $60 in parts and into this bike and trying to get, a $20 or $30 profit. But at the same time, it's not worth the risk that you'll put out, because, well, really, $50–$60 part bike just for, well, obviously the rims. For those of you that didn't watch the original video, the reason why this bike is being parted out is solely and only to do with the fact that I don't have a set of 29-inch rims for this here bike. Now, of course, you can't jam 26-inch rims into it, because they'd only come right about here for the braking surface, and that wouldn't work at all. If it did have rear disc brakes, then maybe you could fudge it a little bit, but at the same time, I myself would know that this bike here wasn't exactly up to my standards. And of course, it has seen a little bit of wear. For some odd reason, given the condition of the bike, the pedals have quite a bit of wear to them, almost like they may have been a used set of pedals, or just a really, really poor design on these here pedals. The seat has a little bit of a scuff in it, but by no means is it garbage. Even the ends of the bars aren't even, punched on through, which, most of them already are. Now, unfortunately, due to the fact that it is a 29-inch wheel bike, I cannot use the front fork for another bike, so that will have to go for scrap. And obviously the frame will have to go as well. The cranks I could probably take off and add to the hoard, the collection, but at the same time I do have, well, quite a good pile of them, and I'm not sure if I want to add another one or just let them go. You could probably spend all day stripping this here bike down to the bare frame, but at the same time and only use about 10% of the actual parts. The brake levers are a Artec brake lever on them, so they are a lower end. They're actually a plastic with a metal lever, so they're kind of chintzy for anybody that's going to ride it all hard like an adult or a youth. The revo shift is in, well, workable condition, so I will pull that off, because every once in a while I do need a complete working set, and these ones are the complete working set. The handlebar is a dime a dozen. I might take, well, the spacers out of the stem, mainly because they do come in handy once in a while. And of course I'm going to pull the back derailleur off it, because I do have a bike that needs a 7-speed rear derailleur, and I'll probably pull the seat clamp and seat post and of course seat. I might take the back brakes off of it, because every once in a while you do find, a bike that's got a half a set or a broken set, and sometimes those do come in handy. It sucks to wreck or take apart a bicycle that looked like this, that had potential, but at the same time, economically speaking, to go out and purchase a set of rims does not well, make sense, especially if you're going to sell a bike for $60-70 when she's all done. Eventually, yes, I'll probably come across a set of 29-inch rims, and I will kick myself for doing it. But at the same time, do you tuck this frame away for another 2 years and hoping to find a set of rims in the meantime? Or just pretty much, cut your losses, let her go, and away we roll. So pretty much, guys, what I'm going to do here is start by disconnecting the rear derailleur, undoing this here bolt, which releases the cable, and then taking this here hex head bolt out of the rear derailleur, which releases that little cog, which then falls away. The chain swings on out, pull the cable onto that little ferrule, and then really the derailleur is free and clear. Undo that little bolt off of the frame, and then the derailleur itself is pretty much good to go. So I'll throw you on the old tripod, try to get you a little bit of shots, and away we roll. Okay guys, so using a 9mm either socket or flat wrench, putting it on the little nut here, releasing the hold on the cable, pretty much grabbing a hold of it, pulling it out, getting her out of the way early. Then we'll move on to the bolt that holds the little red cog on, and it is the 8mm. Again, you can use flat wrench or a socket. Now what I like to do with one hand is tilt it away so you can kind of get a little bit of leverage, slowly pulling that short little bolt out, and then taking the cog out. Now sometimes there is little cups on the ends of those that hold that little bushing or bearing, roller bearing in. Don't lose those cups because you'll need them. On this particular one, lower end, there isn't. Then give the cage a little bit of a twist, kind of like that, and then the chain is basically free. Now what I like to do is immediately kind of put it back together so we don't lose either the red cog or the bolt. Being this is a working derailleur, when you're trying to fix up an older bicycle, when you get a hold of them, it is the back rim and the derailleur that are usually the most damaged items on the bicycle. Sometimes if they've been rode really, really hard, the brake levers and the grip shift or revo shift, whatever brand they were spec'd with, will be broke. So pretty much get that bolt in there. Doesn't have to be super, super tight. So once you got that put back together, remove the derailleur off of the frame, just undoing that little bolt. Some of the older style bicycles had a little mount on the derailleur that went up over the axle nut. This one here, being it's a modern type, it has the little ear that the derailleur mounts onto. So now we will move on to removing the brakes. Now what I always like to do first of all, when you're dealing with brakes and stuff, always remove the little cable end. They put that little cable end on to keep the cable from fraying. Being that you're not going to need it, you just give her a bit of a remove, and then you release the tension of the cable itself. Basically release this bolt, give the cable a tug. Sometimes you'll find a little rubber, a little grommet there that keeps dirt out of the cable. Sometimes you won't. Then you pull the elbow out, cable through the elbow. Sometimes a liner will come out like it has here. Just push her back through. again, add those to your parts collection. And same with the brake cable itself. Some bicycles, the cable runs through little keepers on the frame and they don't have a slot cut in them. Other ones have the slot cut and you just pull it on through and it works great. So to break the brakes or V-brakes away from the frame, there's another 5mm bolt. Pretty much just, snap it away. Now again, these here brakes aren't the top of the line, but at the same time they will work as parts or to put on another bike altogether. Once that bolt's removed, you pretty much just pull them up and off. You see that little dowel there and that little spring. That's what basically gives the brakes its tension. That once you let go of the brake lever, then they spring on back and quit rubbing or touching onto the rim. So we'll twist this one loose, get it all out of the way. Pretty much good to go, just like that. Now, of course, while you're taking parts off of the bike, you're being observant of what's around you for parts. You're seeing what else you can use, and at the same time, you're looking for parts that are damaged or broken, because that does happen. There's no point in storing damaged parts. So the next thing, of course, we're going to remove is the seat and seat clamp. Obviously, they're one of the most easier things to remove off a majority of the bicycles. Some of them have a clamp like this with either a hex key or a hex nut. You gotta use a tool, and some of them are quick release like this altogether. So once you've took pressure off, most times the seat should just turn right out. If it's an older bike that's been ridden by a shorter person, it's probably spent the bulk of its life pushed down in the frame, and there might be a little bit of corrosion that has glued itself in there. I've ran into a few like that. Now, some of the clamps are a band like this. Some of them are welded to the frame and others are removable. This one here, of course, is the removable kind. So now that's done, let's move on to the front of the bike and we'll start stripping off the handlebars and all that good stuff. Now, like I said, I don't really have a need for the handlebars or the stem or so, because I've got, a ton of them already. But at the same time, I kind of do like to keep all that together in one piece, because there has been certain times where I just swap the whole handlebars, brake levers, and twist shift, grip shift all in one shot. In that condition, what I like to do is undo these two bolts, and then underneath this little cap at the top, there's another hex key bolt. You get that removed as well. Now, before we do that, what I'll do is I'll release the tension on the front brakes. So once all three of these bolts are out, the whole fork mechanism can drop out and kind of get out of the way. So we got a 5mm bolt on the top. This one here doesn't really do much in terms of strength. It kind of just holds the fork in place until you can get the two side bolts basically tightened on down. So we will remove this one completely altogether. One thing I will say is it does have the top washer here feels like aluminum. Sometimes I've ran into plastic ones. It's a shame too, because this fork was a longer one. It actually went up to the top of the stem, where some of the ones I've ran into have been, really, really short. This would have been a nice fork to have used. So undo the first 5mm bolt on the side of the stem. Again, you don't have to back it out completely, but it should be, loose enough. So what we'll do is we'll take the stem off. Now, some forks have a plastic wedge underneath the stack of spacers here in the event that your stem does come loose. the fork doesn't fall out while you're riding. This one here might be that case. So we'll get the stem lifted out of the way. Pretty much like that. She's good to go. So then we'll take off the stack of spacers. See, we got 3 here. Now the reason why they're there is they take up the space between the headset and the stem. You can also lower or raise your stem versus kind of your choice on how many washers you have on the bottom or the top of it. So again, set those aside. So of course we got that wedge. It's actually loosening up. So we'll pop that out of the way, pop the little dust keeper, the top cap out, and the fork drops right out. I got bearings here that we could salvage, as well as a few other pieces. Now if you were planning on using this here fork again, I always save the headsets, and that way it's kind of a matched pair. No matter what bike you put it into, as long as the measurements line up, then everything should work. Now, being this bike had disc brakes, as you see there, the mechanism right here, I will salvage that off because that will come in handy in the future. So pretty much, guys, I'm going to put away some of the parts that I have for right now, and then we'll decide what else we're going to strip off this here bike. Okay guys, so here we go. Once you've got the fork out of the way, kind of working on the front derailleur. Now of course with the front derailleur, some of them have a bolt right on this tip here that you undo and you can take the chain out. Some of these lower end ones are riveted together where you have to use a chain breaker or a grinder or a hacksaw or something and physically remove the chain, cut it, break it apart to get the chain itself out of the derailleur. So once you've done that, pretty much majority of the derailleurs have either a Allen key or this little hex head here. So taking your number 9 hex head, pretty much breaking that loose. Sometimes they vary, of course. Different models have different designs, but essentially they all come apart the same way. So you put that bolt back together, back in the derailleur, so you don't lose it, because you never know in the future when you might need it. The front derailleur is very, very slimly or needing to be replaced. Most of the time ever they need to be replaced is when they're wore out. Now of course, if I was doing this strictly for parts, I would probably take the cranks off and remove the bottom bracket. However, if you shake this one, you feel there's quite a bit of play in the bottom bracket. Now of course, doing a test on the bottom bracket itself to see if the nut has backed off, to loosen off, to create the wobble, you find out it's tight, so it leads you to believe that the bearings in the bottom bracket are worn or wore out. Now I could remove these here cranks, however they are steel cranks with a plastic covering, so therefore they are very, very low end, very, very low quality, and really there's no real point, like I said, me cluttering up my parts bin with another set of low end cranks. Now the bottom bracket itself, the shaft goes apart, is very, very good steel, and usually it is still good even if the bearings are trashed. But at the same time, I do have brand new complete sets that I can use if needed. Now if I was going to use that fork again, I would have popped these out. There is a special tool that kinda is like a 4-sided fork that is spread out. You jam in there and pop out. I built my own years ago or you could use a flat screwdriver, sticking it from the top down to do the downside and from the bottom up. I wouldn't recommend that trip. I wouldn't recommend that trick if it is a customer's bike or something of high quality, because you could damage, the aluminum, or, scratch it or something, which wouldn't be good. You could take off the kickstand. However, I don't like that style of kickstand. And of course, the pedals themselves are of no value. But majority of the bicycle is stripped out, about as much as I can use and about as much as what is of still good usable condition. Like I said, it would have been nice to have fixed this here bike, but economically it wasn't worth it for me to put that money out to fix it, just to turn around and resell it for pretty much would have been less than what I would have had into it. If it would have been my own bike that I was planning on riding for a season, well then of course it probably would have been a little easier to have justified it. But thanks for coming along on this little bit of a journey, stripping out a supercycle Phantom 29. And as always, thanks for watching Maxwell's World. Comment, subscribe, and enjoy.